everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Beer Guys Radio. Get together for some conversations, a cold craft beer, and just really have a good time. That's what it's all about. We enjoy it quite a lot. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, it's been a decent week. I've been ill. I've been illing, Brian. So I've been fighting that.
Down with the sickness.
I am down with the sickness. Yes. I'm feeling better today. You know, I got a bad back that likes to give me heck every now and then. And it's been giving me the heckest of heck the last few days, but I'm feeling better. So yeah, all in all, pretty good. Mo, Mike, Nate, how are you?
I'm doing well, Brian. Brian.
Yes.
Doing well, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Yes, glad to hear it. So it does get confusing. There's so many of us here, Nate.
That's right. Yeah,
you can't keep them all straight.
And he's only ever done this once before, so
right,
absolutely.
Brand new
my
to
first
it.
Episode.
Those newbies, good stuff, y'all. Before we get too deep into it, I want to give a shout out to our newest Patreon supporter, Dave Adams. Dave, thank you so much for supporting the show. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to get you some links to come hang out on the Discord server with us. Get you some swag out there. If you want to support Beer Guys Radio, we would love that. And you can go to patreon.com/Beer Guys, see what we got up there. We'd love to have you. So thank you so much. Guys, before we go even further, what are we drinking today? Brian, what's on your beer list?
So I was pre-gaming, getting things ready before the show with a Quackenbrook Pilsner from Smith & Lentz out of Nashville. I'm a big fan of their Pilsners. Love that one. It's another, I swear they had another German Pilsner I had a few weeks ago that was with Saphir, and I think this is with Saphir too, so I don't know what the difference is. I just know that it was delicious. I think I like this one more than the other one I had. I just got into Ron's Dinner Ale from Goodword, which was created with British beer writer Ron Pattinson when he was in town giving a talk. It's a historical AK bitter made with Maris Otter and invert sugar, and I kind of looked into AK bitter a little bit. I think Ron was talking about it, but I missed the talk. And I guess it's like a 19th century British term for a keeping ale, so something you could hang on to for a minute. And it's good. It's really good. It's made by Goodword, so that's nothing surprising. And I'm going to wrap things up by with a beer that I accidentally grabbed. It's a New England triple IPA. It's Hot Butcher Super Megabytes. I meant to grab the regular IPA, and I grabbed the triple, so that's going to be fun. Look forward to that. I don't know if I've ever had a Hot Butcher beer before, and they're very hard to come by in these
Chicago
parts,
brewery, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I've heard great things about them, but I don't think I've had them. Brian, I think you and I stopped at a really cool, weird, quirky beer bar because they said they had Hot Butcher on the menu, but then when we got there, they'd actually sold out of it. So I still don't think I've had anything from Hot Butcher before. So
yeah, so I got my hands on some. I got lucky and grabbed an assortment. I meant to drink the IPA to start off with, and I grabbed the Tippa instead. So I guess, you know, with me, that's a good place to start when it comes to all things IPA. Just go for the gusto and just get it
go.
Over with. Yeah,
do it. And Nate, you are doing dry January here. So What are you sipping on today? What do you got for the NA drinkers?
Today, it's something really easy. It was a hot day here in Georgia. I was doing yard work all day. So I took Topo Chico, drank a couple sips out of it, added some lime juice, and just salt into the bottle.
Okay.
Something easy.
Have you tried any of the flavored Topos? Not the seltzer, but the ones that are actually, I think they have a lime flavored one, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have. They've got like a hard seltzer line as well. I haven't had it this month, but I have had it in the past. And so I do like Topo. I think they do a really good job of cramming as much carbonation in the bottle as possible without it exploding. So I do enjoy that.
Cool.
Maybe that's why I like them so much. I
like Topo as well.
The high carbonation, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like the minerality in that one. I think some of that is delivered also. I think the carbonation helps kind of carry that flavor on the palate. But yeah, I dig it. So good stuff. Well, I am not dry this month. So I've got from the Sweetwater 420 family, recent brand expansions here. I'm sipping Citrus Haze, and this is a citrus hazy pale ale. So that is my beer for today. So I'm going to use this Sweetwater. I don't mean to pick on you, but this goes out to all brewers. I like dates on my cans. I want to know the date that it was canned. And some brewers use a best by date. And considering this is September 21st, and that's like still 3.5 months off, I'm guessing this is a Best By date. Don't give me a Best By date. Give me a canned on. Let me know. I don't want to have to, break out a decoder ring or anything like that to find out, how old my beer is there. So just give the born on date from the beer rather than the Best By date.
I don't want to be told when your beer is Best By. I know what you think about it, and you can tell me what you think, but I want to make that choice for myself because I definitely do not agree that a 6-month-old IPA is still within the Best By
it's not.
date. So,
and the thing is Best By on IPAs can vary a lot depending on how they're handled once they leave the brewery there. Mm-hmm. So, can be a huge difference. We went, I don't remember where it was. We stopped in a couple shops this weekend, Brian, but there was one that had like fresh hazy IPAs on a shelf, and the store was kind of warm. I think, we were probably getting close to 80 degrees in the store, and they've got IPAs on the shelf. And this was a beer store. This wasn't like you're at the grocery store or something. These folks should have known better than
they should know better.
Like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know that refrigeration space is limited, but it's kind of important if you want to keep the trendy, and you don't have to do it with everything. The stouts are for the most part fine. Brown ales, porters, you can keep those on the shelf. Right. I'm not worried about that. You can probably get away with ambers a little bit, too, that sort of thing. Yeah, I get that, but man, the hop really falls off, man. You really got to keep that. You got to keep that cold, and man, I do have to give a lot of love to what's a hop. Now I'm forgetting the name of it, but the one that has the coolers all around the outside where all of the beer is in a cooler.
Hop City.
Hop City. There we go. That's the one. I love that. And I wish more places did that. That's an appreciation for, and they do that with everything, stouts too, which I appreciate. Not as essential, but all of those IPAs in there, I'm willing to give a lot more leeway to the lack of born on dates or, an older born on date just because it's been refrigerated, because it's going to hold up better. So I love that. And I wish more places did that. It's really hard to find here.
And unfortunately, as I have visited a couple distributor warehouses, they also do not refrigerate. I think there's certain brands that they have an agreement with that they absolutely have to refrigerate. But most of your craft is sitting there in a. Now, you know what? I'll say this. This was a Budweiser warehouse that I visited. AB and Bev was the main, and they do have requirements for the temperature you have to keep the entire warehouse. So if you've ever been in another warehouse, I worked in one when I was younger, they can be 100 degrees in there. They did have to keep the temperature down a little bit, so it wasn't like they were in 90-degree heat or anything, but they weren't refrigerated. So
the one exception for my rules about buying IPAs is Maine Beer Company. I don't know what magic they do. I think it's their handling of dissolved oxygen, but those things can sit on a warm shelf for way too long and still be really good. And I have no idea how they do that, because I don't think I've encountered any other IPAs from anybody else that hold up nearly as well. So,
no. And that, one I can think of on the opposite end of that spectrum is Pliny the Elder. That's one I think that really shows its age pretty quickly. You want that one fresh. And I think that's one of those things that some of the people that consider themselves the beer elite would mock me for making that. Oh, you got to drink it within a week. Is it fresh? But I've had a bottle 2 days old that someone flew back from going out there and visit them. I've had a bottle 2 weeks old, and I noticed a difference. So, it's definitely something. And if you get Pliny super fresh, it's still a great beer. I know it's not the coolest, hippest style right now, but it does not make it not a great beer because of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, Brian, we talked a couple of weeks ago. You were talking about putting saline in cocktails. Nate, I think you had some thoughts on that as well, dripping in there. So, somewhat related, because, Brian, you also have been known to sip some brown spirits every then and now. But you were playing with water in your whiskey here recently, right?
Yeah, you probably saw it. For some reason, it's making the rounds again. I've seen it before in the past, but It's a viral video by Richard the Nose Patterson, and he's, I think, a master distiller at, I forget what the distillery is, but his whole thing is he has all this process of smelling the thing multiple times, and then he gets a little jug of water and he pours it in, and he's talking about you want it down to an ideal ABV of, I think he said like 45% or something like that to make it ideally palatable, like just get it ideal. And his whole thing is he throws he rinses his glasses and throws it on the floor. So like it's highly entertaining to watch. And I saw that, I'm like, that is a lot of water to put into, your spirit. But I got me thinking, I'm like, I've got this dropper. I've been using it for putting saline in cocktails. I'm like, you know what? He makes a really good argument for what you can do with water and how it will improve a spirit. And he's the distiller. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to experiment. So I started putting 2 drops at a time in various brown liquors, rye and bourbon. And one specifically I played around with was Willet Straight Rye, which is it's a high proof. So I've been doing all this with high proof stuff. It's 109 proof, and 2 drops at a time. I saw that thing change amazingly, and I got to recommend that get yourself a water dropper, an actual legitimate water dropper, and be very careful about adding it and taste it as you go. I'm betting you could take almost every whiskey you have. You think drinking it neat, and I was very much a drink it neat guy, especially the higher proof stuff, and I think that there's a spot in there where it's even better than it is neat by like a significant margin. So it starts off with the rye, and it still burns, but it's herbal and it's got some mintiness. But as it goes on, it actually goes more like crazy malty caramel. Like it changes so much in the space of like 2 drops to 10 drops, and we're talking about a very small amount of water added to basically 1.5 ounces of bourbon. And I measured it out. Well, that's rye actually, but I measured it out. So I had a pretty good idea of what I was dealing with. And like there's a spot in there, like I would drink it neat, but there's a spot in there that was better than neat. So it's fun to play with. It makes every single bottle you have like 5 or 6 different bottles suddenly. So it's kind of cool. I would recommend doing it. And I'd recommend finding that Richard the Nose Patterson video of him drinking and tasting and smelling his various brown liqueurs. So yeah, do that. Check it out.
Well,
recommendation.
I've tried that and I haven't found one yet, and maybe I just didn't have the right ratio, but I don't care for water in my spirits. I haven't found one yet that, at least based on the ratios that I was trying, that I thought were better with a little water than they were just straight out of the bottle. And I also like a hot whiskey like Booker's. What are we looking? 140, 123 on some of those bottles? 120.
I think so. Yeah,
right. So
it's significant. And Booker's, I had historically had all of I like the high proof stuff. I like to drink it neat. Booker's was the one thing I always wanted to put something in. And I like the flavor of Booker's, but I wanted it with something else because it was always just too hot. And so I was looking my aim was to find that spot where the burn was just disappearing, but you didn't lose it too much. And like there's a spot in there for every spirit where I think that might be possibly the ideal thing. But if you like the heat, and I get that people like the heat, then you don't have to do that. But if
I'm
you're
open
interested
to
in
continued experimentation. Yeah, I'm open to exploring it more to see what I can find out. I'll admit that I haven't done a lot of it. Nate, as our spirit guide, we're going to call you our spirit
guide.
Excellent.
Our spirit animal. What are your thoughts on that? Do you mess with water do you drink much just straight brown whiskey? You're a cocktail guy, right?
I mean, I'm a cocktail guy as well, but yeah, so I've sat in on a couple of panels where we're selecting a single barrel, and when the distillery offers us samples to go through, they also routinely will offer droppers with distilled water, because what the water does is it helps integrate all the flavors, and so you're getting them all simultaneously instead of sort of like pops of them throughout the tasting process. And so I do enjoy adding a drop or two, and like Brian with the Bookers or me with Stag Junior, it's just too hot, and when it's that hot for me, I add like a little sliver of ice. It helps drop the temperature down a little bit, but also adding that water to it really helps, and it makes the drinking experience more enjoyable to me. But at the end of the day, Tim, realistically, best way to drink your brown spirit is the way you want to drink your brown spirit.
Drink it how you beer, whiskey, what food, doesn't matter.
Yep.
If you enjoy it, it really doesn't matter what the experts say, what the nose says. I was going to say, anytime I hear Ron Pattinson, I always think of Richard Paterson, the two. I was like, wait a minute, this is that guy. That's good. So it's not, but I do like the noses videos. He's always entertaining there.
Yes.
He's a very proper, I guess. Is he Scottish, British? I'm not sure.
I think
Scottish, right? I know he talks about Scotch a lot.
True.
Yeah,
Is he
not
a Brit.
I'm not 100%.
But he's always in a nice suit and tie. He's very proper, but he's quite animated. Like you said, he'll stick his nose way down in there and flick whiskey and water around in that. It's a good time. He's fun. He's fun to watch. You know what? What I like about him is the guy knows his stuff, but he's not going to be offensive to someone just learning the stuff. He's approachable. His attitude is approachable. And you know what? I think on the flip side of that coin, there's a few people that are with cigar magazines that come across as super pretentious.
For sure.
They're very much, where you're like, okay, this isn't for me. If I'm just a whatever guy. So, and they did verify he's Scottish. I figured he was,
Every group has their
in the
snobs.
land of Scotchland. Yeah, they do. Beer snobs, even 10 fish snobs, man. Crazy.
Who are those guys like?
Yeah,
nerds.
crazy.
Stupid nerds. That's what they are. Brian, Nate, how long would you hold a beer fest ticket if they told you it was postponed? What would you consider an acceptable amount of time to set on your ticket?
I would assume a festival postponed means you're going to do it later that year. That would be my expectation.
All right.
I would probably do one calendar year, because sometimes it gets postponed to the next time that season comes around.
Okay. Gotcha. So we've got, give it to me the same year and maybe one calendar year. You'll wait till the next season comes around. So that's what we've got. Well, if you're in Chicago and you purchase tickets to the Chicago Beer Classic in 2020, you're still holding your ticket waiting for the reschedule right now. So the beer festival was very popular. It was held at Soldier Field. So, had a lot of fans out there that really like being able to walk on the field where they seen games played and that. And the locals say they love the festival. They love the venue and just a really good time in previous years. But 2020 was, quote unquote, postponed due to COVID, that little thing that happened then. So 4 years later, though, there is no reschedule date. And the organizer is not responding to emails. No refunds have been issued, and people are just holding their tickets and waiting. And a local NBC station talked to one person who said he bought, I think he said he bought tickets for him and his two sons or something like that. But, he's got like $150 out on tickets, and really $50 for a beer fest is not a horrible price these days. But he's still got $150 tied up there. He said he's emailed the guy several times, the organizer several times, has not heard anything at all about it. They're just holding the tickets and waiting. There has been no announcement of a new date, and of course, no refunds issued there. Now, the NBC station did reach Josh Seago. He's with Lou Dog Events, who was the organizer of the festival, and apparently he's been promoting a lot of other festivals recently as well. Now, he didn't want to go on camera with them, didn't want to sit down and talk with them, but he did reply and say that one of the delays was due to scheduling with Soldier Field, that he didn't want to change it to another venue. He thought that was important for the festival, and that he plans to bring the event back in 2025. However, in his comment to the station, there was no mention still of any possibility of refund. So he's saying he's bringing it back next year. That'll be a 5-year hold, man. Vintage tickets, those should be worth more. He should actually refund them more than what they paid, since they're vintage now.
Yeah, seriously, they're more valuable. I wonder if there's going to be some attempt to finagle more money out of people if it does in fact happen.
Man,
but
I wouldn't doubt it.
Saying it's happening, oh yeah, I'm doing it next year, is just the classic way of putting off. Like if you're never going to pay back a bill, the answer is always, oh yeah, the check is in the mail. I'm going to do the event for sure next year. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So purely speculation stuff, but I mean, I have to think if you're setting on Are those funds that he got from all the tickets he sold, or they're just sitting there, waiting in the bank collecting interest or something? I would have to think after that many years, like even as an event organizer, I wouldn't want to set on people's money for 4 years. I would put it and be like, look, once we get these ducks back in a row, we'll sell you tickets here. But, I just don't think that would be a good idea to get tied up, that far out there. So.
I don't know anything about it, so my thought is I would be really surprised if the money wasn't spent. And
again, that's speculation. We have no idea, but it wouldn't be surprising. There has to be a reason you set on that for that long without issuing refunds. And the fact that he's not replying to people definitely doesn't speak.
It kind of sounds like if I wait this out, because those people can't, at this point, it's been long enough that you can't go to your credit card and say, hey, I want to dispute this charge from 4 years ago. The credit card's going to say, no, we're not doing that.
I don't think so. Yeah.
That's the first thought I had is like, by telling them that it's next year, you've eliminated their ability to find a refund by other means. So now you just got to wait them out and then wait and see if anybody takes you to court. Nobody's going to take you to court over 50 or $100 or
not worth the time and effort.
Nobody's going to do that.
They'll just deal with it. I'm surprised that there's not some like legal requirement for that kind of thing. If you have an event and you don't hold your event, you should get a refund. I mean, that should be all there is to it, So if you don't hold the event, I know a lot of beer fests will put out, this is a rain or shine event. And we actually, Brian, a few years ago, Decatur Beer Fest, we put on parkas and stuff because it was pouring. But the fest still went down. So it was one of those things that, if you decide not to go because it's a rainy, nasty day, you're out of luck. You bought the ticket knowing it's a rain or shine event. Yeah.
That's on you, but the fest actually happened in that case, so that was a decision.
It did. You know what? You know how they sell travel insurance? That is going to be. I'm going to start a business. I'm throwing this out right now. Beer fest ticket insurance, and it's like you can.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's say $5 a ticket. You throw it out, or we'll work it. I'll have to work out the details. This is just, I'm just brainstorming here, guys. I'm just brainstorming here. But you pay, and then if your festival gets canceled due to the weather, then I will think of a lot of excuses why your specific situation is not covered under the insurance policy.
So typical insurance then. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because my cousin had his homeowner's insurance canceled recently because he has trees. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of experience in telling people no for very
I do.
Reasonable things?
I'm a recruiter. So I've told people no. I've disappointed people many, many, many times. So it's definitely. Yeah. Apparently there's some kind of beetle infestation with certain trees, and he had enough on his property that they will not. It's too big of a risk. So no more homeowners insurance.
That's wild. So do I get a refund for all those years of paying?
No. That's not the way that works. No, that is not the way that works at all.
We spent that money.
Yeah, no. Okay, you're not going to insure me anymore. Well, since I didn't have a claim for the 7 years I've been paying you. Oh, no. No.
Yeah, we're going to kick you out, and we're keeping all that money. That's fantastic.
But as soon as we saw there was an actual risk there,
it's a scam. It's a scam.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Brian, Anchor Brewing. I think this one came in kind of midweek after our show taping last week, or did we cover it a little bit? I feel like maybe it came in.
We did.
Okay.
No, so we did go over it. Yeah.
I thought so. But you got some updates for us on it, right?
Yeah, so last week we didn't have any details about the transaction at all, but the thing we've learned since then is that Hamdi Ulukaya, the Chobani founder that bought Anchor, paid $9.9 million for the Anchor property. The Anchor property had been listed for $40 million, so he got a sweetheart deal on that, apparently.
Okay.
We don't know the cost of the Anchor brand and its assets, but in all likelihood, he's going to get a significant discount over what Sapporo originally paid on it. So we found that out, but then I found out in another article that apparently most of the former Anchor employees will be returning to their original roles in the brewery, and Ulukaya has, said that that's going to happen. He intends to try to resume operations at Anchor by Christmas of this year. So I guess it takes a lot to get that back up and running after closing it down for, I guess it's been closed for 6 months.
While
We going on a year at this point? I don't know. It's been a while.
I don't remember the exact date. Time flies by. You know, I saw Christmas in your notes and I was thinking Christmas Ale, but if he's just getting it back up, we won't see Christmas Ale this year if he's just getting it up and running in. But we can be, you know what? Based on the news I've seen, the guy seems like he's legit trying to bring back Anchor Brewing to what it was before. So I guess we'll have to see if he follows through on that, but I'm hopeful we'll see steam beer again. I'm hopeful Christmas will be back, I guess, by 2025. So maybe just in time for the Chicago Beer Fest. So
maybe, maybe they can do it there. And I did see a picture somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, but I think I saw a picture of the old like vintage steam bottles, like the pre-Sapporo rebranding. I think they are going back to that as well, which I think is also kind of a win. Let's just erase this whole period of time where Sapporo
we don't talk
kind
about
of screwed everything up. Yeah, let's not talk about that.
I'll talk about that. I'm hopeful, man. It sounds pretty good as far as breweries closing and reopening. Like we said, you don't often see a brewery pull a Lazarus move there. So it'll be cool to see them do this. And I got some of his yogurt in my fridge, and as a show of support, I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna get some of your
steam yogurt.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not actually. I think maybe they do. Who knows, Brian? No one knows how yogurt's made.
No, nobody does.
It's like beer in the 1800s. You just put some stuff in a bucket, and boom, you got yogurt like 3 days later. So
perfect. This will mess you up or kill you. You can figure out which.
Eat that. Let me know how it goes. So. Brian, you got some news on Delaware, a little self-distro action coming there, right?
Yeah. Delaware craft breweries making less than 5,000 barrels annually can now do self-distribution. They can do it up to 1,500 barrels of beer per year to retailers in state. So the Delaware Brewers Guild has been fighting for this for years, trying to get this self-distro, and they finally got it with the adoption of Rule 911. That is the actual name of the ruling, apparently. Their big argument was small breweries being forced to work with a wholesaler hindered the brewery's ability to achieve any kind of profitability, which makes sense because you got somebody else in there taking a chunk of the proceeds. And I can tell you that we are jealous of you down here in Georgia, Delaware, and congratulations. So that's some good news. I'm happy about that. Yeah.
Good stuff, Brian. So some news on clean beer. And this has been going around, Brian. What do you consider when someone's clean beer? What do you think about?
I usually think of it as being generally a flavor descriptor, it's kind of hard to put into any other words. It's clean. There's no junk in there, you know? I mean, I don't have a better, I should have looked into a better description.
No, I get what you're saying there. Nate, how about you? What do you think of when you hear clean beer?
So I'm with Brian. I think first and foremost, I think of it as a flavor descriptor. And I think clean means the carbonation is on point. There's no off flavors. The adjuncts aren't conflicting each other for flavor dominance. It's all just really well balanced and clean, just real easy drinking direct.
Okay. Interesting. And I think it's interesting that both of y'all say that because my understanding of it is different. So I guess I see why the TTB, I always consider clean beer the fermentation method. That if they're doing just a standard yeast, whether it's lager or ale yeast, that's a clean beer. And I don't want to say unclean, but the opposite of clean beer is you've got, some Brett, lacto, whatever in there. That was kind of my definition. If someone says, yeah, this is a clean beer, that they were indicating that there were no, bacteria or anything in there. So
I have heard it used in that reference. I think the article I was looking at kind of prompted me to think about it in a different light. But no, that makes a lot of sense. So definitely in a beer, if you describe the beer flavor wise as clean, you would not be getting the funk to it. There would definitely be no funk. There'd be no weird acidity. There'd be no, like Nate was saying, no weird adjuncts fighting for dominance or messing things up. It wouldn't be muddy. Muddy's the thing that you get out of some beers. So,
And I've used that descriptor before in the way you guys are saying it. I mentioned the Native Brew Works that I went to over in Arkansas a few weeks ago. They had a Kolsch, and I would have described it as a very clean Kolsch. A lot of times a Pilsner to me will be, I'm like, okay, that's crisp and clean, refreshing there. But Brian, with all that said, it's a buzzword in the industry right now. So much so that the TTB had to throw some thoughts in on the matter.
They did. They released a statement on it. They don't actually define the word clean to mean anything, and they don't have any standards that are tied to the usage of the word clean. But they do make one thing clear, that the word shouldn't be interpreted to mean anything. It should not mean organic, produced organically, and it should not ever be construed to mean that this beer in any way meets some sort of TTB production standard, because they don't have anything defined for that. Any misleading use of the word clean in beer marketing is something that will get you in trouble with the TTB. Specifically, anything that indicates that an alcoholic beverage is good for you. We know this. Do not say any kind of booze is good for you. And you cannot in any way say that use clean to mean that the health risks from drinking a given beverage are in any way reduced by anything involved in the beverage. So if it's got alcohol in it, you can't do that. But don't worry, the use of the word clean is a flavor descriptor. And I think clean in terms of like a wild or sour beer versus a clean beer is also acceptable. The TTB considers these things, quote unquote, puffery. So
I like that they called it puffery. I picture a very pretentious guy at the TTB going, this is just a bunch of puffery. And flicking the monocle around. Yeah. And I'm good with that. I appreciate that very much. That's really nice.
Not everything needs some sort of a rule or some sort of a, big document to wade through, procedure to go through. So it's nice that we can have clean, as long as we use it responsibly. Use clean responsibly. I think it's interesting that they had to chime in on it, though, and that they do get picky with the way you use words and talk about you can't use it to mean this or this or this. We have a friend of ours that made I think it would be classified as like a rum cocktail, and it's on the shelf as K rum, and it's I believe it's rum, honey, and ginger, if I remember correctly. But we all hung out at the same cigar shop when he was formulating it, and he called it Chilixer at the time. And he would bring in his test batches as he was dialing in his recipe. He'd bring them in, and he'd had a logo with a Buddha on it and all this stuff. He said he was going to call it Chilixer. When he finally went to market his product and get it out there, the word elixir could not be on there because that noted medicinal properties. So he ended up having to go to K-Rum, was not able to use Chilixer, which is unfortunate because Chilixer is kind of cool. The Buddha, chilling out, having a good time. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And I'm thinking rum cocktail, like rum punch is a thing. You remember that Legendario rum
Legendario.
Punch?
That's it.
That's it's a rum punch from Cuba, so it's technically legal here, but it's amazing. It's fantastic. It's far better than the Cuban rums.
Did you say technically not legal here?
Yeah. Well,
I think they are now. I think possession is now. So I don't think it can be sold here, but
yeah.
And I don't know, because I do think that kind of flip flop back and forth, but I do think you can possess Cuban items now without it being contraband.
I don't think they've ever gone and like into someone's house and like burned their stuff for having Cuban cigars, or Cuban rum, or anything like that. But yeah, it's been weird. I've come back a few times bringing stuff back through, and it seems like it changes from basically president to president what's legal, and I have no idea what it is now, because I really haven't been out of the country in quite a while, so I have no idea.
I know some of the guys that used to travel to Cuba, and there's ways you can do it from America and this and that. I knew a guy one time that worked on oil rigs, and he was an American guy, but the way that they got out to the oil rigs was he would go to the oil yard and take a helicopter out to the oil rigs. And he may take the helicopter out of Houston, but then go into Acapulco, or whatever. So didn't really go in and out of customs to go in and out of these countries. So that was another one. And I know I've heard guys talk about bringing cigars back where they take the labels off and like stick the labels in an envelope or something, so it doesn't say Habana on there. And then they're like, oh, what's the origin? They're Dominican.
Yeah.
They're Dominican,
Same.
Nicaraguan, Dominican. So stuff like that. But there's ways to do it. I haven't got Cuban said. And to be honest, Brian, even when it wasn't, you could mail order the things here. So
yeah, you can. I imagine there still are places that do that. So, and the better places would actually replace your shipment if it got confiscated, which I think apparently it did occasionally, but the most part,
it's been a long time since I've ordered any Cuban cigar.
Yeah. It's I don't get into them nearly as often as I used to, but they're fun. I mean, some of them are good. Some of them are good. Yeah, if you got a good draw, like that was my biggest thing. If it was a tight draw, that
they get plugged up.
When I'm smoking cigars, if the draw on the cigar is tight, I hate it, and it's not going to last. I need an easy draw. I'm a guy that's built for comfort. I do not want to work at smoking my cigar. I just don't. I'm sorry.
This
it's not happening. Yeah.
This should not be a laborious task.
No, this should be very easy. I paid a fair amount for this, and they're more expensive now than ever before. So yeah, it's not getting cheaper to do this either.
And it's also something that I think people just think Cuban cigars, boom, that just means it's a good cigar. It most definitely does not.
No,
there are definitely some crappy Cubans, and there's counterfeits.
Definitely.
The old joke of the glass top boxes, like any Cohiba in glass top boxes.
I wonder if they've
and people would brag about them.
If they've improved their agriculture any, because really their biggest problem was their agriculture, just over farming their land, so the tobacco just was lifeless. Honestly, that was the biggest problem they had. If they
sucked all the nutrients out there,
if they could get it back into a more sustainable type of situation, they could have a better product. And the good stuff was very pricey. So anyway, it's
good stuff, man. Cigar talk.
Nice radio.
That's it. That used to exist. It
did, didn't it? Yeah,
it did. Then they all passed away. Crazy. So, Brian, cold plasma in beer. That sounds like it could be the next IPA trend, right? Cold plasma IPA.
Yeah. You know what? Yes, it could be. I don't know. Boy, I don't know. I'm sure somebody out there has something about a plasma IPA already, but no, in this particular case, it's a completely different thing. It's more directly attacking or involving the malt. So, according to a study published in the Journal of Food Engineering, using something called cold plasma steeping technology can be used to reduce fungal mycotoxins from wheat and barley grain, resulting in an increase of grain germination by 10 to 13%, not to mention making the products made with that particular grain much better for human consumptions. As it turns out, mycotoxins aren't great for people to eat. So they have been connected to health issues like immune impairment, DNA damage, kidney damage, and a variety of other nasty business. And unfortunately, these mycotoxins are naturally occurring, and they're in a bunch of crops, including grains and other things as well. So in the past, agricultural folks have been trying to remove this stuff using high temperatures, and it doesn't do a good job of removing the toxin from the grain. They use this new approach. It works similar to a fluorescent light. They apply electricity to a gas, and they didn't say which kind of gas, but the resulting ionized particles are apparently extremely effective at removing these mycotoxins from grain. In some tests, they did some trial runs of it. They were able to remove like 54% of them from the grain when they applied this process. So that means that maybe all of the crazy inflammation people have related to wheat and barley and all that, it could be these mycotoxins, and maybe cold plasma could improve our beer, give us better grain harvests, and reduce all of our various inflammations and sicknesses and everything else going on with us and our grains. So could be cool.
But now I'm concerned that my grain currently has mycotoxins that need to be removed.
Yes, it probably does.
I mean, I eat things like bread.
Yes.
And sometimes just grain, just, a bowl of oatmeal or something like that.
It's just go out to the field and just start chewing on some sprigs.
Go out there, man, feel like a country boy, put them wheat stalks in my mouth.
There you go.
And say yeehaw, tuck my thumbs into my belt loops.
Well, it's a fungal thing, so if the wheat smells funky, don't eat it. So that would be
great. Now I'm scared of wheat. Lovely. Lovely, man. Lovely. Brian, you know how I'm going to deal with this? I think that I'm going to head to Truist Park, and I'm going to go see our friends at Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta. I'm going to have a cold beer there. I'm not going to think at all about what mycotoxins may have been on the grain before it went in there, because I know our boys at Terrapin are going to take the best care select the best grain, and they're going to brew a good beer. So I'm going to go see what's new on tap. It's hot. Brian, we're supposed to hit 100-degree heat index this weekend in Atlanta. So it's going to be hot. We've got air quality alerts. Brian, there's stuff coming from my grain. There's stuff coming in the air. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be hot. I want a cold beer. Terrapin's going to take care of me there. And if I'm hungry, man, I'm going to get some barbecue. Maybe they'll have those country fried ribs on that I love so much that we only see occasionally. And Brian, since my grain's coming for me, there's cold plasma technology to take care of things. I've been trying to eat really healthy, but I think I've earned some country fried ribs and a cold beer. So I know that I can head to Truist Park, Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta, sit down, chat with some good people, get a cold beer, some fried ribs, and just let my cares slip away. So thank you so much for our friends at Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta for sponsoring Beer Guys Radio.
So mycotoxins are not one thing that can be said is your life is far from boring, Tim. Like you're constantly running away from the various toxins.
Got to be on my toes, man.
Yeah. Something else that's never boring is Truck and Tap. You're never going to be bored when you pay a visit to Truck and Tap. If you get bored of one beer or a beer style when you're there, they've got 20 taps to choose from, plus bottles and cans. If you get bored of beer, which is not possible, but just saying, if you did, theoretically, they've got wine and spirits. If you're bored of sitting indoors, you can go hit the patio, or you can hit the overproof rum bar on the roof in Alpharetta, or you can take your drink for a walk in Woodstock. You can do all these things. So you don't even have to stay there if you don't want to. And on top of all that, they've got events, they've got live music throughout the week to make things more interesting. And let's not forget the ever-changing lineup of Atlanta's finest food trucks. And another thing that's never boring is my Truck and Tap beer picks of the week. And I think we can all agree on that. So here are my picks.
I agree, Brian. I always wait for these. It's the
never
highlight
boring.
of my week. Yes.
Never boring. So at Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going to be walking around the neighborhood with a steady hand Cloudland IPA with my head in the clouds, not thinking at all about mycotoxins. In Duluth, I'll be sipping Unanese No Regrets about mycotoxins. It's an American wild ale fermented with limes and dry hopped with Mosaic. At the Alpharetta location, I'll be up on the roof drinking a painkiller cocktail, worrying about mycotoxins. But if I weren't doing that, I'd be downstairs drinking a Six Bridges Sour Continuum kettle sour with papaya and guava. And finally, at Lawrenceville, I'm going to try Prairie's Watermelon Girlfriend, a sour ale with watermelon, sea salt, orange, lemon, and lime. If that doesn't kill mycotoxins, nothing will, honestly.
And even if it doesn't, it sounds mighty tasty, Brian.
Yeah, and you won't care. You'll be enjoying yourself so much.
You won't care.
So, of course, what's happening is always changing at Truck and Tap. So make sure you visit truckandtap.com for the latest scoop on food, beverages, and events. And once again, thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Awesome stuff, man. So, Brian, a big buzzword, not just in beer, but really everywhere, every industry right now, sustainable. They want to use sustainable in their marketing. Even beer. Breweries talk about sustainability, and not to make too light of it, we have talked to some breweries who are very serious about sustainability, renewable energy, lowering their carbon footprint, and all of that good stuff. But a recent survey, a global survey of 3,500 beer drinkers across 7 countries, over half said they would pay up to 30% more for beer that was sustainably produced. So what that means is that in some way the brewing process reduces waste, water use, and or reduces energy consumption. And that is when the other option presented is a cheaper beer that does not prioritize sustainability. So, Nate, what do you think about that, man? Would you, thinking of beer prices now, would you, if a brewery comes out and it's like, guys, we use less water, we're solar energy powered, we don't have mycotoxins or midichlorians in our beer, would you pay 30% more for that 6-pack that's currently $14?
Absolutely not.
Okay, there we go. Brian, how about you, man? Would you jump on a 30% increase for sustainable beer?
Well, if they said no mycotoxins, I might be on board.
Right.
No microplastics too. I need that. You know what? If they said no microplastics, I might actually pay the 30%.
Might get for that. I don't know that anyone can make that guarantee right now.
I don't think
that's really tough.
I don't think it's possible to do that in anything, water or food or anything. But I think it depends on the base price of the beer starting out. If it's like a $10 6-pack or something like that on the lower end of the craft, and they add 30% onto it, like this is the super cleanest, maybe we can't use the word clean.
Is it the cleanest though?
This is the most organic possible, least amount of whatever. There's like zero mercury in it, and there's zero micro whatever filaments, and no broken light bulbs or anything in that. I'm like, all right, it's 30% on top. Okay, what is that? I don't know the math. It's a buck or two. Maybe I would.
If you got a $10 six pack, you're talking that becomes $13.
Yeah, okay, that's
an $11 six pack becomes $14.30. A $12 six pack becomes $15.60.
Okay, yeah. Oh boy,
it's jumping up pretty good there, isn't it?
It does, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm really thinking about my wallet. I'm like, yeah, it's neat to this is a good thing, but also I've got so few of these like crinkly pieces of paper in my wallet that I can actually use for this. So yeah, it's a tough call. I probably not, honestly.
Okay, fair enough. And you know what they said? 61% of those surveyed say that sustainability concerns already directly affect their beer choices. So you've got people out there that definitely care about this. Brian, I tell you what I would do is if a brewery talks about sustainability and they make good beer and it's them or someone else, I would factor that into my choice given two comparable beers, but I wouldn't pay more. I wouldn't want to pay, but I want you to be sustainable and I want you to be green and I want you to be all of that good stuff, but I want you to give me a competitive price with everybody else. As a matter of fact, if someone were to come to me and say, this is literally the best beer in the world that we've ever made, but we are seriously trashing the planet, but it's 30% less than every other beer, I may buy it.
Seems like I don't feel good about myself, but I'm probably going to buy it and drink it. Yeah.
I'm not going to be here to care if if all the trees disappear.
So my thought is, after reading this and thinking about it, like every brewery we've had on in the past, God, how many years? Like 4 years or more? Like every single one of them has wanted to say something about what they're doing for sustainability and environmental consciousness. And I don't think we're in a situation anymore where you have to make a decision. Everybody's making some sort of an attempt to do this, which is it kind of like this study in a way seems like it's dated. And I couldn't find an actual date on the study. Finding the actual specifics of it, I'm not sure how old that it really is, but not everybody, but a lot of people are making steps in that way. And it's not more expensive to drink from a brewery that is doing the things to be more sustainable and better for the environment. So you can do that without paying the 30%, which I think this is just like for the argument's sake. Would you do that? And honestly, I was looking at the article further down. The whole point of it was to talk people into buying a more expensive filtration system. So the idea was they will pay more. You need to buy our more.
You buried the lead on that, Brian. I was reading from your notes, and I'm like, when you throw in that this is sponsored content of people trying to sell a filter, then that's totally different. But that's along those lines. I was thinking about that. Of course, I'm joking about paying less for a beer if they say they trash the planet. But I do know breweries that I would consider wasteful, that aren't conscious about that. And that does play into my, I don't want a brewery that's intentionally, that doesn't care really, and we've talked to, who was it? Sip of Sunshine, Lawson. We talked to Lawson. They did a lot of stuff with that. Maine Beer Company does, a lot with that. And you know what? Maybe we're already paying 30% more, but these are places that are already making really good beer. So the fact that they're a little bit more doesn't bother me as much because I know the quality of the liquid that I'm getting is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, honestly, at this point, with all the steps that people are taking, Anderson Valley aren't they all solar powered?
Yeah.
Like 100% solar powered.
I think they even sometimes send back to the grid. I think right. Yeah,
and I do order them a lot when I see them because I think their beer is excellent. And you know what, you can feel good about if you see it, go out and get some. I think they do a wonderful job, and entirely solar powered. There are a few places out there that are like that, but I think they are the first.
You know what? I think Anderson Valley is one that I don't think they get as much love these days. I think they were cool maybe a decade ago, probably.
They definitely had a hot phase for sure.
Yeah. And they, by their own admittance, they're not trying to keep up with trends or chase trends or anything. They're just trying to make quality beer and do well. And they seem to be doing well. But I think they're making some pretty good stuff. And I think another brewery that I know they get noticed and I know they get mentioned, but I don't think there's as much hype as there was a few years ago is like Boulevard. Like when they had their love potion series that they kept putting out and the Saison Brett that they released. Those were ones that people chased, that people look forward to in that, and you just don't hear it as much anymore. But I think that could.
They did burn down at huge sections of forest just for fun every time they bottled a beer. So I mean,
that's fine. Yeah,
because the beer was so good. They're like, we could do that.
It's a sacrifice to the beer gods to make sure that things come out right. I think didn't BrewDog do that recently? They totally destroyed a forest. So
well, they took it in its infancy, so it's super tragic, and they killed all these infant trees. So they basically did that.
Terrible, terrible, terrible. Well, y'all, we are about to the end of the show here. We got another story. We'll save this one though, Brian, because we don't want to cut things. We don't want to go too long here, but we thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. We greatly appreciate it. Next week, we're going to be joined by one of our local brewer friends that we've known for many years. They're growing and having a good time. We're going to talk to Michael Lundmark from Jekyll Brewing. And I was going to say of Alpharetta, Georgia, but they got a few places around of Georgia. So we'll just say Georgia. We're going to have a good time with that. So we thank you for hanging out with us. We hope that you all have a very good week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.